Hey, thanks for joining me. So, about out walking the dogs this morning. It's 19 degrees Fahrenheit out this morning. It's super cold, so I had to put a really heavy coat on. But I was out yesterday taking some pictures with this early Rolleiflex Automat. This is a Automat Model 2. Some experts call it the Model 1. The only difference between the 1 and the 2 is this little cover that swings over the shutter release button. The 1 doesn't have this. And so there are some experts that just call this a Model 1. And then there's some that call it a Model 2. Whatever. It's a very early Automat. Made in 1938. The Automat, of course, introduced the famous Rolleiflex loading system where you feed the film between the rollers. When you load it, you actually feed the film between these two rollers right here, underneath this top one. And it senses automatically the thickness of the backing paper and film where the film starts. Senses that difference in thickness and starts the counter. So it automatically, hence the word Automat, it senses the film location, so makes loading faster and easier. It also has a crank. And notice this crank compared to later rollies, this thing is just like sheet metal almost. It's super thin. But anyway, crank to wind the film and also cocks the shutter. And so the Automat is really where the modern or more modern Rolleiflexes started really taking shape. But this one was made in 1938. Like I said, it was made in Braunschweig, Germany, just before the war. And the distance scale on this is in meters, and all the writing on the exposure guide is in German. So this camera was made for sale in Germany or Europe. So that's kind of interesting. The other thing is, this camera had been modified. You can see there's a little hole in the leatherette there, and there's another one down here. This had a couple of threaded posts installed in it. One of them was bent and damaged pretty badly, and so I decided just to remove them when I had the camera apart to clean the shutter. At some point, I guess I'll need to cut a little piece of the leatherette or leather and glue in those spots so it's not quite so obvious. But the purpose of the two posts was to mount a bracket on here. There's a slot cut in I've got a piece of gaffer tape over it, but there's a slot cut here, and there was a little piece soldered to the release lever on the shutter so that when you put this plate on here with a solenoid on it, you could connect a Highland flash gun, which is, the big flash gun that used flash bulbs. And when you fired that flash gun, it would fire the solenoid, which would trip the shutter in the camera. And I guess all that synced with the flash bulb, and you could take flash. Now that was typically done, adapted that way for photojournalists. Your typical hobby photographer wouldn't probably do that. So this camera was probably used by some kind of journalist. Now, it's led a pretty rough life. You notice that the top corner here of the nameplate's chipped off, and the camera's, in generally pretty banged up shape. You notice there's a good sized dent right here and another dent up here on the sheet metal. The finder is not perfectly straight going across, and there's pieces missing. The general viewfinder, the hood is there, but there's a lever missing. There should be a lever right here that allowed you to pull the lever up, and it flipped down a mirror at a 45-degree angle so you could view straight ahead looking at this magnifying lens. And the little magnifier that should flip up to allow you to see the focusing screen magnified is missing. It should have been mounted right there. So this thing led a pretty rough life. Whoever used it didn't pamper it at all. This is definitely not a camera that was pampered and kept in the closet. And this camera was out there being used hard every day. And if you look at the overall condition of the camera and the wear on the pressure plate, the camera feels just like a little loose all over. I mean, it's had a lot of wear. I mean, the wind on it is very free, and it's just had a lot of pretty hard use. Now, the thing that's kind of interesting to me is that 1938, just before World War II starts, this camera is purchased. This is basically the same model that like Lee Miller would have used during World War II. So somebody probably took pictures in Europe of World War II with this camera. I mean, I really don't know who. I tried to do a deep dive on the serial number on the internet, used 2 different AI models to try to search to see if that that serial number would come up anywhere, to try to connect the camera to anybody, and it's not happening. And this might have been some European newspaper photographer, might have been a war correspondent. I mean, the Germans also had their own photographic units during World War II. We don't really hear much about them, and if you search online, there's actually some history of some of their journalists, just like the Allied journalists like Lee Miller, Robert Capa, David Douglas Duncan, all those people. They're fairly well known, but there were also German journalists as well. And in fact, Lee Miller was living in England and France before the war, and if she had bought a Rolleiflex locally, she could, I'm not saying this is hers, but she could have bought one like this with, the German markings and all that before the war. So it's really hard to say whose this camera was. I just wish this thing could talk, if they could tell us, a frog in my throat, if they could tell us about its history, its life, everything that it's been through, I think that would just be so fascinating. So anyway, I cleaned this thing up and took some pictures with it. The reason I went ahead and got this, I was watching it on eBay. I was watching it, and they kept bringing the price down because nobody was buying it. They said it was inoperable, which, I mean, I could have actually taken this out of the box, put a roll of film in it, and taken pictures. The higher speeds would have been fine. The slow speeds were a little slow, maybe a half stop, 2/3 of a stop slow, but they were running. Even the self-timer ran. All those things now work just fine, but, it was not inoperable, so I'm not really sure, why that was stated that way. You notice that this camera has the Bay 1 attachment for filters and lens hoods on the taking lens, but the viewing lens does not have any of that. On the Model 3, or the last model of the Automat before they started the 3.5 series, this had the bayonet one on the later ones. This has a 75mm f3.5 Carl Zeiss Jena Tessar. The lens is not coated. Anytime you shoot pictures with an older camera that has a lens that's not coated, you absolutely want to use a lens hood. Rolly lens hoods have gotten a little bit expensive. This is actually a reproduction made by, or sold by Photodiox. That's F-O-T-O-D-I-O-X. I'll put their website in the description down below. They sell a number of Rolly accessories. They have hoods in Bay 1, 2, and 3. They also have the lens caps, the kind that, if you've got the double bayonet, that you bayonet it on the top cap and swing it down and snap it over the bottom one, and they're chrome, and they're reproductions of the original Rolly lens caps, and they're very nice and much cheaper than original Rolly one. The one I got was a little tight when I first got it, but it kind of loosened up after I used it a little bit, and it works just fine now. But yeah, so you definitely want to use a lens hood anytime you're taking pictures with with any Rolly, but especially with one that's got an older uncoated lens. So anyway, in Oklahoma City here, we have a museum that's the 45th Infantry Museum, and it primarily, it had some older stuff, but it primarily showed things from World War II. And there was a section of the museum that was about I think it was Dachau, but I'm not sure. But it was one of the concentration camps that was liberated by the 45th Infantry, and they had a whole room there full of photographs and things from, that part of the war. And so the state is changing it, though. The building it was in was built in the 30s, and it really wasn't that big. So they're giving it a new building, you might say. It's much bigger, and there's a lot of outside displays too. That there were tanks and armored vehicles and jeeps and a helicopter, I think, and maybe a small plane of some kind, like an observation plane. But they had all this stuff outside you could look at. Inside, of course, all the displays in the museum. But they're changing it to a National Guard museum, and it will actually start with the beginning of the National Guard, which is, I think, much, much earlier, than World War II. and go through more modern conflicts. And so it'll cover more than World War II. But I thought it would be really cool when that museum opens in 2026 and it's supposed to be in the spring. I haven't actually driven by it to see how far along they are. I know they've closed the old museum because I guess they're moving, stuff over to the new museum and getting everything cataloged and redisplayed. So I'm really excited to see that open up. I thought it would be totally cool to take this camera to that new museum and photograph the the museum with the this old World War II vintage camera. And also I wanted to kind of do it on some film that was a little bit more similar to what this camera would have had. So when this camera was around, the most popular Kodak film was Kodak Super XX. It's ISO 250, and it was Kodak's fast black and white film until Tri-X came out in the 50s. So interestingly enough, after Super XX was no longer really being used, the movie industry had Kodak basically spool it up as Kodak XX 5222 movie film. And it is reformulated a little. They made the grain a little finer, and there's some other minor improvements, but it's basically the same film. And the cool thing is, because they do make it in larger formats for the movie industry, CineStill actually spools it up in 120 format. So this is the CineStill BWXX or BWXX film that's basically respooled Kodak 5222. And I bought a few rolls of this. I'm going to shoot a couple as tests just to kind of see how it does. And then I even bought some of the D96 movie film developer to process it in. So that's going to be kind of fun, shooting a Rolleiflex from World War II with a film that is very similar to what would have been available for this camera during World War II. And so that's all going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm not sure how much I'll really use this Rollie beyond that. I've got other Rolleiflexes now that are, they have those Tessar lenses. I don't have any with the planar or the Xanatar, but still, they'll take great pictures. I really love them, and I've shown some of them on this channel before. But I am definitely going to take this thing out and use it from time to time. I'm going to be looking for things to photograph with it that are period correct for this. So in Oklahoma, during the Depression, there was an organization, it was a government agency called the WPA, is the Works Progress Administration. And these pictures I'm about to show you, the first four of them, are of some little castle-looking structures that were built in a park here in Oklahoma City. So the WPA built everything from things at parks to school buildings to, like our municipal building in Oklahoma City and our Civic Center Music Hall were built by the WPA in the 30s. There's also another building I want to photograph with this. It's in a little town called Wheatland, and it's a 2-room schoolhouse. It's abandoned right now. I mean, somebody owns the property, but the building's not in use. But it's a 2-room schoolhouse made of native stone. Very similar. When you look at the stone work that these little castles are made of, it's the same kind. And so that 2-room schoolhouse is a project, something I definitely want to photograph. I can shoot it from the street without having to trespass or get on the land. There's no fence or anything. But if I want to get up closer to it, I need to try to find the owner of record for the property and see if I can get permission to get on the property and photograph it. So anyway, I'm looking for some things that would be really interesting to photograph that are period correct for this camera. Anyway, let's take a look at some of these pictures, and I'll kind of walk you through these. The first 4 pictures that you're seeing now are of these little castle structures. There's basically 2 structures. They're on kind of opposite sides of a parking area, and they were, as I understand it, they were made in the 30s for children to play on. I'm not sure what they really did in these, and you can't get inside of them, so I don't know what they're like inside. I don't know if you can access the roof. It looks like there's electric service to them, so they probably had lights inside. But these were built in the 30s by the Works Progress Administration. They're really interesting buildings, and they're in this park. no one can get into them or do anything with them now, so they're just decorative, but they really are, from a historic perspective, really cool. These next few images are of an old filling station, and all the pumps in that are gone now, but the building, you notice it says Deep Rock on the front of it. We had an oil company in Oklahoma that was called Deep Rock, and later changed to Kerr McGee, and they were huge in Oklahoma for a long time, and they're gone now, but this was a Deep Rock filling station. Now it's a beauty salon. It's just a cool little building. You know, I love it that people repurpose some of these buildings and keep them going rather than letting them be torn down. So that's really cool. And then these last couple of pictures, the truck that you've seen me photograph a million times before, I just took a couple of pictures a little closer because I wanted to verify the focus was accurate. If you look at this one of the headlight, you can see it looks like my focus is dead on. I was focused on the trim on that headlight, and you can see the screw heads and everything are really sharp. So this I think you know, really shows the camera can deliver some great image quality. These were all shot on actually on Cat Labs X Pro 320, and I pushed it to ISO 400, and I processed it in D76 1:1. That film is known for being super contrasting. I thought the lower contrast of the uncoated lens would probably be okay with it, but it seems that it got more contrasty than I thought it would. If I'm going to push Cat Labs X320 again, I'm probably going to use HC110, which has lower contrast. Anyway, I hope those were interesting to see. You know, this is going to be a fun camera to use. I didn't, you know, I'm not making an attempt to restore it to like as new condition, because I want its condition to tell its tale. I mean, you look at this camera and you like, man, if this thing could only tell me where it's been, and if I could only see the pictures it's taken, it'd be so cool. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. If you have any thoughts or questions, please don't hesitate to, you know, leave me a comment. I always love hearing from you. And as always, thanks for watching.